give it about 5 more seconds and call it good. So we'll get the preliminaries out of the way. I'll go ahead and call the July 12th regular Seward City Council meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Chief, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Tonight's roll call. Buckbon.
Present.
Osenga is excused. DeMoss.
Here.
McClure.
Here.
Casagranda.
Here.
Cease.
Here.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is citizen comments on any subject except those scheduled for public hearing. We do have one public hearing item. And then, Madam Clerk, just when you have a chance, we'll start calling those folks up to the podium.
Okay. The first citizen is Bruce Joppa.
Mayor, council members, administration, public. I don't know if I'm going to stay till the end of the meeting, so I'd like to get a few things on the record. First thing I noticed, it's been a little while since I've spoken publicly at a meeting, but the format and the presentation that you guys provided is excellent. Way better than what we've seen in the past. It gives a good opportunity to review the different departments, make statements, individual statements, conditions, activities, very easy to get to easily. Driving into town today, one of the benefits of not coming to town often is you get to see things with a different lens. If you're in someplace every day, sometimes it grows on you, you don't see it. Seward is dynamic for today. When I drove in this afternoon, I had to wait in line to get someplace. That's good. Along with that, there's a parking issue in town. I won't get too deeply into most of these topics. Parking's a good news. You know, I was here when we were required to provide parking for employees and personnel in our buildings downtown. Off-street parking, I don't know if that's still in effect, but many of the businesses downtown still have that opportunity to get their employees to park off-street so that the tenants or the customers can park on the street. I'm excited by the work you've done with the power industry. Rod deserves a lot of credit, and council and everyone who's put time into that. It's a long activity. There's a lot of moving parts there. I'm disappointed that the heat loop, which is a very exciting project, looks like it's not going to move forward because of other attention that money has to be put into. The biggest thing that I'm here tonight is that during the week I received a call from the Department of Transportation regarding the airport. Some of you know the issue with the hot ticket, and I was appointed to a commission that the council asked us to review. It didn't come out the way we wanted. Planning and zoning reviewed their proposal this last week and essentially punted. Essentially saying that they would like PACAB to review it. PACAB doesn't have a scheduled meeting until fall. That would essentially mean that there'd be no city action. Department of Transportation has a mightier than thou attitude, and there is a provision where no action is acquiescence. So by not responding to them, they might decide that they can move forward without any city input. Now you see the governor last week wanted to do that with Supreme Court. It didn't work out. I'm not sure that it would work out for DOT, but I would caution that it's a possibility, and I'm willing to participate in any activity the council feels is necessary to review this thing again and get an earlier input. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next.
Next signed in is Christiana Smith.
Hi, my name is Christiana Smith and I live outside of city limits. I am giving comments on behalf of myself tonight. And I just want to give my support of authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Dawson Construction for the design and build of the new Seward Animal Shelter. This has been a project that has had years spent getting to this point. There's been countless hours on this project by community development. In 2018, there was a number of planning and zoning meetings to determine the location of the new animal shelter. It was early on identified that where the animal shelter currently is not where it will be. There was a couple of different locations that were proposed, and the final one was decided on Sea Lion Avenue. It is considered the ideal location. It is not in a residential area, which was one of the biggest concerns by planning and zoning, as well as council members at that time, that the animal shelter would not be supported moving from a residential area to another residential area. It's also close to all of the Seward schools. That means walking access. School district, they are battling with budget constraints continuously, and this would allow for a field trip and learning opportunities within walking distance. So there would be easy access for that. This is the second RFP that has gone out for design. This is the first one for the build. The winning bidder has done projects with the city of Seward in the past. I think that's beneficial to maintain a very good professional working relationship with them. And the current design is meaningful. It takes into consideration the animal's house there, the staff working there, and community members that will be utilizing the facility. I believe the facility that is proposed will be something the city of Seward can be proud of creating and maintaining for years to come. I believe we have the right people in the right positions at this time, and I trust that city administration and the finance department have done their due diligence in finding the right funding source for the proposed amount that it will cost the city to build the animal shelter. And I feel that council should support what's come forward to them and authorize the city manager to enter into the contract. Thank you.
Next time, please.
Next is Mark Luttrell.
Good evening, council. My name is Mark Luttrell. I'm the president of SOS Pets, a pet advocacy group that's been around since 1994. And I like everything Christiana said. This proposal and everything behind it is years worth of expertise from the city administration, recently the police. It is the accumulation of very good ideas. I'm impressed that the administration has kept this thing on the priority list forever and ever. And where where the proposed animal shelter is by Sea Lion is right in the middle of 3 schools. Like Christiana said, walking distance for every one of them. Super great resource for the teachers and the kids. Possibly a new dog park on borough property right next to the proposed site. It's not residential, and it's the animal shelter is a specialized building, and you can't just renovate an old one and hope it'll work. I mean, we've been doing that with existing animal shelter for 35 years. Should we delay this? I think it will just wither. Dawson's proposal will, their timeline will fail. I mean, we could go after another RFP. It would interject uncertainty. There's plenty of documented support. This is from 2014. We went to SMAP and tagged every kid we could find, including these. They all say, we want a new shelter. So you definitely have lots of community support, tons. SOS Pets has $26,418 obligated for the new shelter, which we would like to spend on furniture, like an exam table or a refrigerator for vaccines. And after, if we can fundraise, if we have something solid, we can fundraise for it. So far, I mean, 7 years we've been fundraising for an idea, but if we have something solid, I mean, we'll be able to get more money. Trust administration's done its homework. This is a good investment. It's worth the money. It's good value. I think that the location is right, time's right, so I hope you're approved. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, Madam Clerk.
Next is Jane Bellobert. I am so sorry. I always have trouble with that.
I'm used to it. Madam Mayor, council members, my name is Jane Bellobert. I live within the Stuart city limits, and I am also in support of the RFP from Dawson Construction to go to the next step of building a new animal shelter. I'll keep it short. We all know we need a new animal shelter, and it's a big price tag, but it's not going to get any cheaper. If we want a shelter that's going to last 50 years, it's not going to get any cheaper. So as a taxpaying citizen of Seward, I would like to support, let's get this off the city's task list. It's been on the city's task list for several years. Let's just move forward. Let's get it done. So thank you very much, everybody.
Madam Clerk.
I don't have anyone else.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Go ahead.
Linda Paquette, outside city limits. I wasn't planning on speaking, but after Bruce spoke, I wanted to just encourage you guys to either pull the airport committee back together or ask PACAB to convene a meeting. I think Bruce is right. If we don't do something, they'll go ahead and do, they have a way of just doing what they want anyway. But if they're asking for input, I really encourage us to give input. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Thank you. Next on the agenda is special orders, presentations, and reports. The first thing is proclamations and awards. There's nothing officially on, approval of the agenda and consent agenda. Let's try that. I'll look for a motion in a second, please.
I'll move for the approval of the agenda and consent agenda.
I'll second.
See, I was jumping ahead. Any discussion, any changes? Councilman Coscarelli?
I'd like to pull resolution 2021-078, 2021-074, and 2021-076 from the consent agenda.
Okay.
Second.
Any other changes? Okay. Let's call for a vote on the agenda and consent agenda.
Voting on tonight's agenda and consent agenda. Cease,
Yes.
Casagrande,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Buckline,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
Your agenda and consent agenda are approved. Approved on tonight's consent agenda. Resolution 2021-075, authorizing the city manager to engage the city's on-call engineering firm, R&M Consultants, to conduct an environmental site assessment and limited site investigation of the city-owned public works facility located at 434 6th Avenue in an amount not to exceed $32,587. Resolution 2021-077, authorizing the city manager to enter into a memorandum of agreement with the Kenai Peninsula Borough for the co-administration of municipal elections and authorizing the mayor to sign Kenai Peninsula Borough Joint Resolution 2021-001. Also approved on tonight's consent agenda are the June 28th, 2021 regular meeting minutes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now on to special orders, presentations, and reports. It's not officially on there, but we did receive from our port sister city of Kashiro City in Japan a commemorative shield as a reward for the winner of the 66 Silver Salmon Derby. And we had sent them a gold pan for their merit prize for their rowing boat race, which they did not hold that. But we do keep that relationship going and exchange commemorative plaques and recognition throughout the years. So next on the agenda is the Borough Assembly report. And he is not here for this meeting. Next on the agenda then is the city manager's report, and you'll find that starting on page 4.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to highlight one item that's in your packet, and it's regarding the Renewable Energy Fund grant. And as I stated, kind of for the historical purpose of where the project started out, what the council authorized as far as the budget for the project and the match, and then what happened to the cost estimate once it grew, and it obviously is larger than what was authorized. And then we received a 90-day extension letter from Alaska Energy Authority to provide us with more time to make an informed decision about the project. I reached out to them and asked for more time because I thought, well, if there is going to be stimulus package, a stimulus funding, this is a shovel-ready project, and perhaps they would fund it. So I'm actually meeting with them by phone tomorrow afternoon to plead the case, basically, and I'll let you know where that goes. Harbor Master Regis wanted me to add something. He received, in addition, that they received all of the bids to repair the 50-ton approach to the ramp. The concrete needs to harden for the weight of the lift and any vessel, so the lift will be shut down from the 13th of July to the 19th of July, and at the same time they'll be replacing the cables on the lift and their yearly maintenance. He says, we're sorry for the inconvenience, but this needs to be done prior to the business haul-out season, which starts in late August. So he wanted me to add that to what is in your packet.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments for the city manager? Who wants to start? I have a couple. Should I kick it off? Okay. On page 9, from the finance department, it does have some proposed dates of October 6th, October 7th, the 13th, and the 14th for budget work sessions. So I guess I'll just bring that to council's attention if they can look at their calendars, and let's just keep that, let's make sure people are aware, because I know we're starting to get into AML and some other conference seasons. And the other thing is I had a question within the Public Works. So thank you for letting us know that you're continuing to meet with the engineer about the lagoon study. And working with the on-call engineers to plan a study on our current conditions and needs. Is there any sort of timeline for that? Or will we know, is there a timeline for knowing the timeline?
Yeah, Madam Mayor.
And it's fine if there's a timeline for knowing the timeline, I get that. I was just curious what we're looking at.
Okay, what we, City Manager Bauer authorized them to proceed to go through to get a study started.
Okay.
To get going, but it's an overview study, okay? This isn't the full-on, like a master plan study. They want to give us an overview of where we are today, what our capacities, give that full overview of what all is going on right now. What they think is maybe right or wrong with both, and then the way I'm understanding it and talking to them, they really want us to consider doing a master plan, a 20-year plan that really shows what we should be doing, and it helps. I'm all for it. It helps us to be able to look ahead and see what's coming and where we can go, and helps, I think, council to be able to see what costs are coming forward. So it's a small study to start with, to just give a good overview.
And so have they started that already? Do they know how long it'll take, or?
They said they would be on it here this end of this month and working through some of that stuff, but we should have some of it going already. They should be starting the preliminary stuff.
Okay. So by the end of the summer, we'll have something
I
back
would think
to
by
us?
the end of August, we'll have a little bit more to really look at.
Okay, thank you. And then I think I just have one more thing I was making notes, but you know, it would be great. I know that PACCAP does meet as needed during the summer, so it would be good if the Planning and Zoning Commission did send that to PACCAP, that they at least be informed and hopefully get a special meeting together.
Can I just answer, just so everyone knows, the project, the resolution that came forward to PACCAP, or to Planning and Zoning, was not about the project in general, it was about right-of-way assessment. So just so everyone knows, you know,
Sure.
it got sort of blurred, and I just, we will reach out to PACCAP for sure, but it wasn't about the whole project.
Yeah, I know there was some plating and some different things, but if there was a component that they're looking for any final public comments, it would be good just to get public comments. And that's all I had for now. Any other comments? Councilmember Cascarino?
I actually thought of a couple. I was wondering if we have an update on the forensic audit. They will be on site in about 2 weeks. They're actually having a little bit of travel issues, finding a place to stay and getting here, but they're working through that. But we have sent them documents to start them there, so that they've requested items and we've sent them to them, and so that they can do some work from there and then they'll come on site.
Did you have a follow-up then?
Yes, please.
Okay.
When they come on site, is that when they'll be reaching out to conduct interviews?
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then I do have another question.
Go ahead.
So, this might catch you off guard, and I can always follow up later, but I just wanted to get the council head nod that we had a discussion before you were hired about hiring a CPA along with our finance director. And I hear that she's coming soon, which is really awesome, and is maybe already here. And I was just wanting to follow up that we do in fact still want an interim contracted short-term, and that was something that we held a special meeting for and all agreed of having a CPA on site.
It was my understanding that the CPA would be from July 1st to, I believe it was a short period of time that the CPA would be here, and we're past that time, and we only received one proposal, and it was deemed non-responsive.
Okay, I'll follow up later, because that's not what I understood, but okay.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there any chance of our proposed budget meetings to start earlier? Work sessions?
Well, it's in code now. We have it outlined in code, so
Right.
I'll let you speak to that.
It is a week earlier than it used to be, and Madam Mayor is correct, it is in code, so we can look at starting earlier, but I think it would be difficult to do so. Do you mean earlier, like in the month, or
Well,
earlier?
when do the new council members take over?
Election is October 5th, and
October,
the
yeah.
election is certified the following Monday,
Okay, and then when do they take over?
That-
October 25th.
Oh, okay. All right, that's okay then. I'll be here.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Great, thank you. Yeah, and I will echo, I think the new format is much more user-friendly and clear to read, and good information is coming forward, so thank you for that. City manager's report. City attorney's report.
Did I get elevated?
You did.
Good evening. For those of you who don't know me or haven't met me, I'm Brooks Chandler, your city attorney. There is a report in the packet. It's on the activities of the legal department in the month of June. But I'll review that and maybe elaborate a little bit this evening. Main event, legally speaking, was a day and a half of collective bargaining with the negotiating team for Seward Public Employees Association. You don't usually comment on the details of the bargaining process till it's all over, but I will say that it seems to be going fairly well. For those of you that aren't completely familiar with collective bargaining, what you do is you go through items by items. Not everything all at once in one big mass, but you kind of separate your contract into various components, and as you reach agreement on those, you do something called a tentative approval, one by one by one by one by one. Then when the whole thing is put together, it will be sent out to the membership of the union for whether or not they accept what the bargaining team has negotiated. And then it comes to the council. It's kind of the last step in that whole process. So the target date is for an agreement that's effective next January. So I assume that would be kind of coming up. This is just sort of a little heads up. The existing ordinance that you have for the city to contribute toward development costs as a way to incentivize the construction of residential housing is an imperfect system we have found in dealing with the reality of people actually starting to apply. This is a fairly new ordinance, I believe. So I've been giving a few, some advice as things were happening, but the city manager has realized that we really need to kind of revise this thing, and so that will be happening, within the next couple of months. I think you'll be seeing a proposal for a system that makes a little bit more sense, a little more orderly. And some of these things, I'm sure you're all familiar with the tariff that's before you. We did a little review on that. The MOA with the KPD for the elections, that was something I looked at. The animal shelter contract was actually the subject of some fairly significant negotiations just over the last week, kind of at the last minute. So that doesn't really count as something that was done in June, but just so you get a sense for how the work we do integrates with what the things that come before you. We took a look at whether there were any legal issues associated with the city granting the $500,000 for the child care project, and there really aren't. There's nothing that would prevent doing that, which is good news for everybody, I'm sure. You've got something that's percolating, which is a change in the relationship between the city and the community health clinic. I think you've probably heard about it. If it does kind of come to pass that relationship changes, that will require some ordinance change in your code, because right now some of what happens in terms of council involvement in the budget and things like that for the clinic is part of your code. So that's sort of out there. Different but related, just because it's health. Providence is doing something called rebranding, and so they think they might need to make some kind of slight change to an agreement they have with the city. Completely non-substantive, it just changes the name of what the entity is called that you have an agreement with. I'm not even 100% sure it has to be done, but they're excited about whenever somebody wants to rebrand, they like to change all the paperwork, so that might come forward soon. We did, before the negotiations that I mentioned a minute ago about the animal control shelter, we had looked at the contract, while it was out to bid as well. And, we looked at the ordinance change. It was pretty simple about the stipends for the council members and planning commission members. And we've given some advice on how are you going to roll out the next franchise agreement for garbage collection in this town. The agreement was done quite a while ago, but the way it was set up, there is not a way to extend it in writing. So, and there's quite a process in code and charter when it comes to what's called a franchise agreement. Franchise agreement is, an exclusive deal. So it's like one company, they're the only ones that are going to be given permission to do the garbage collection in town. So that's quite a ways away, but the finance director, Sam, was kind of on his game, and he's looking ahead to make sure he didn't get caught unawares of what the process might be. So gave a little bit of advice on that. That is a good summary of what went on in June. Legal expenses for May were very high. more than $15,000 directly related to the multiple appeals on the P&Z conditional use permit. Bills will be down quite a bit from that in June and quite a bit from that in July. So I can answer any questions.
Councilmember Cease?
Let me try to understand this. I mean, that garbage, Alaska Waste, they have the priority. If anybody else bids on it, then they can't do it? Is that what I understand?
No, they don't have a priority. They have a binding contract with the city right now, but it ends not at the end of this calendar year, but I believe at the end of the next calendar year.
22, then anybody can bid on it then?
Yes, it will have to be an open process, at least under the current code, charter, and things like that. And if it is set up as a franchise, it has to be approved by the voters.
The voters of the city, you mean?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Yeah. So, assuming that system stays in place, that would be happening in October of 2022.
Okay.
Which requires the RFP to go out, so this is why Sam was, on the ball and ahead a little bit, trying to figure out if it has to get approved in October, when do you go out with the RFP, and that type of thing.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you.
We're currently on an extension.
Yes, but it's the last one that's allowed under the terms of the contract.
I don't have a question for you, but it did bring up something. With the rebranding in Providence, not to nickel and dime them, but it would be interesting to see if they would be willing to pay for our legal expenses in conjunction with the rebranding. And if there's any signage rebranding, that not be charged to the city, under our memorandum of agreement. But if they're rebranding, they should absorb those costs. It might be interesting to just make sure to have that discussion with them.
Madam Mayor, I'll ask them about the legal costs. They did it, all other costs they were paying for.
Okay, thank you.
But I'll
Thank you.
follow up on the legal.
Thank you for confirming. Well, good. Are there any other questions or comments for the city attorney? Again, thank you for the report. It's very comprehensive, easy to read, and then having the expansion during the meeting is helpful also.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
We have no reports or announcements. We have no presentations. I'm testing everyone, so if I skip anything. Next on the agenda is public hearings. We do have one resolution requiring public hearings, and it's Resolution 2021-073. Madam Clerk, if you could read it into the minutes, please.
Resolution 2021-073 is amending the electric rates and charges tariff by updating the language for alternative power rebate, creating a section for alternative power excess credit, and clarifying the calculation used when an alternative power source generates more power than supplied by the City of Seward.
Thank you, and I'm looking for a motion in a second.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2021-073.
I second it. Thank you, and then I'll turn it over to administration for presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The changes that we're recommending to the tariff are really about two things. First, we want to separate the alternative power rebate that's in the existing tariff into two parts, because there are two different ways by which a customer can benefit with an alternative power source. Second, we want to update the calculation that's used in those instances when a customer actually produces more power than is supplied by the city during a month. The tariff language today includes both calculations under the headings, or under the heading of alternative power rebate. While we want to keep the rebate, we also want to create a separate heading for an alternative power excess credit. We believe this change will help customers better understand when and how rebates and credits are applied. We're also recommending that the calculation for excess credits be updated in determining Seward's non-firm avoided cost. It's typical for electric utilities to use their non-firm avoided cost to establish the rate that they use for calculating excess credits. And for Seward's customers, the rate should be adjusted up to include line losses. The previous calculation that we were using here in Seward was simply the non-firm avoided cost of our wholesale supplier, Chugach Electric. That rate that they use does not include line losses and is not a fair way of calculating for the customers that live here. In developing the updated calculation, I did consult with Chugach Electric. I also consulted with Homer. And then I worked with Mike Hubbard, our rates consultant, to finalize the formula. The resulting calculation is one that I believe, and Mike and Chugach and Homer also weighed in on, that's appropriate for Seward, but more importantly, it more fairly credits the customers here when they're producing in excess. For 2021, we are planning to use 8.5% as our line loss percentage. Moving forward, our plan is to base line losses on the previous year's percentage and round that number to the nearest 0.5%. And with that, I will be glad to take any questions. It's actually good news, the changes that we're recommending, because it does help benefit our customers here more, especially when they're producing the excess power.
Thank you. And before we go to questions, I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing. Madam Clerk, did anyone sign in for the public hearing?
No, Madam Mayor, I don't have anyone.
Is there anyone in the public that would like to make comments on this public hearing item? Go ahead. Oh,
I just want to say.
I'll have you go to the dais.
We cat outside city limits. I'm just excited and want to say thank you for getting to this place. And I don't know whatever happened to the can that Phil Palooza put on the council, but we can get rid of it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Council. It's really good news. I talked to Rod a little bit earlier, congratulating him on getting us to this point. This has been a real tough slog. And it's a complicated area. And not everyone understands how power works. You know, there's little electrons in that wire. They come from someplace and they come out of our house. How that's calculated in cost, some utility managers make that a mystery. From what I've been able to determine, this is pretty clear. Using a line loss calculation, which is a little bit of a magical touch, but it's real. And we are the end of the power lines. The line loss is an important issue. You know, this puts a possibility, an opportunity for all of us, you know, to help our own cause. It's not, there's still investment credits, or tax credits for alternate power, solar generation this year. I hope the Washington administration extends that. And all the things you hear, I'm a fossil fuel guy, but I will say that net carbon reduction in solar energy is real. The cost of making panels, windmills, in carbon is nowhere near the benefit that they produce. And what this system is allowing Seward to do is participate in that in some way. And I will say, as Richard Branson said, knowing where we might go, we don't really know. We can only dream. But this is a start.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else wishing to speak at the public hearing? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. And now we'll turn it back to council if there's questions for administration. Did you have?
I do have something to bring up, Madam Mayor, and I'm sorry I didn't prepare this for you ahead of time. Can we do an amendment in the sections? Because council has already amended the electric tariff previously this year that will go into effect 2022 and 23. And this resolution is effective July 15th. Can we add a section that scoops in the tariff that's already on the books so that it accommodates this change in it as well? that might seem like belts and suspenders, but we have a tariff for 2022-3 that was previously approved. This one goes into effect now. We want this language to carry forward in the next
Correct.
tariffs.
Correct.
So in section 2, should we add, this is just a question, this resolution shall be implemented on July 15th, 2021 and incorporated into following year's tariffs, or tariffs already adopted, or what should that look like?
Yeah, if I can recall, I can put in the actual resolution number that would refer to that, if that's acceptable.
Well, if while you're looking for that, I do have a question, and it's a little bit off of that. It's probably transgestory to this, but I would like to get, when this is incorporated, a full copy of all the tariffs. Because I went back to try to piece it together, and I just think as a council member with all our new changes, I know that there's some things happening in 2022 and 2023, but at some point after this, I would just like a copy of all the tariffs together, if possible. And, or if it's posted on a website and I get a link or however that goes. So that was my request. Did you need a quick recess? I don't want to pressure you, but would that be helpful? What can we do to?
I don't have the number memorized, so I have to look it up.
Okay, well, let's take, it's 7:41. What if we're back at 7:45? Okay, so
Thank you.
Thank you. we go. So
Okay.
I'll call the meeting to order at 7:45. And so, we've, clerk and et al. Found, resolution 2021-064. So should it be, this resolution shall be, so just throwing it out there, no motion yet, but are you looking at section 2? This resolution shall be implemented on July 15th, 2021, and subsequently incorporated into the tariff changes with resolution 2021-064, or do you think there needs to be a separate section, or how do you want to do it? What's your suggestion, Madam Clerk?
The attorneys, that sounds good to me. The attorney doesn't object to that.
Yeah, these are, Rob, these are what, they get reflected like in a rate sheet that's part of the tariff.
Correct. Well,
Yeah.
it
So,
is
yeah, that-
part of the tariff.
Okay. And subsequently incorporated into resolution 2021-064.
And that will be my motion. I don't know if you want to restate it for folks, and I'll be looking for a second.
So amending section 2 to read, this resolution shall be implemented on July 15th, 2021, and subsequently incorporated into resolution 2021-064.
A second.
Thank you.
But so I might just speak to that motion. So even within that motion, it sounds like you're going to be able to start what we're talking about, the calculations this year, July 15th.
Correct.
So that motion won't delay any of that being into effect,
No.
correct? Okay,
Correct.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, we want to make sure that we're capturing, if we have a customer today that produces power in excess of what we provide, that they can get the full benefit. So that's why we're going forward.
Excellent. Okay. Are there any questions or further discussion? And this is just on the amendment at this point. Okay, let's get a vote on that, please.
Okay, voting on the amendment, Casagranda,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Buckland,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That amendment is approved. Your main motion is back on the floor.
Is there any discussion or further questions on that resolution? Madam Clerk, let's call for a vote, please.
Voting on resolution 2021-073 as amended, Cease,
Yes.
Buckland,
Yes.
Casagranda,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
and Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Thank you. Nice work. Next on the agenda is resolution 2021-074.
I move for the approval of.
Sorry. We'll have the clerk read the title
Sorry.
to the agenda. No, thank you. Sorry.
Resolution 2021-074 is authorizing the city manager to enter into an automatic aid agreement between the City of Seward Fire Department and the Lowell Point Volunteer Fire Department for the purpose of firefighting and emergency operations.
Vice Mayor?
I move for the approval of resolution 2021-074.
I'll second.
Thank you. Administration?
Fire chief is here.
Madam Mayor, this is just general housekeeping, going through all our files and our utility agreements. We found that we're lacking in some areas. At Lowell Point, we don't have one on file at all. And so being a good neighbor, we're just trying to do some basic house cleaning. This allow Lowell Point to automatically be dispatched by 911 dispatch center to any structure fires inside the city limits to assist us with manpower and vice versa. So any aid that they would need, we would respond also. Of course, this is manpower depending on our staffing if we could send people, but this is.
Thank you. Councilmember Casagrande?
If I can ask administration, actually, I don't need to ask any questions. I'd just like to strike section 2. If I can get a second.
I'll second.
Did you want to discuss that motion?
Basically, it's just saying that if any changes to the agreement in the future won't come before council, and I think it's fine to come before council if the agreement changes. So that's why I'm taking that out.
Any response to that, or?
Madam Mayor, there's just a common language that is in every auto agreement that the attorney's office sent to us. It's the same language we put in the Bear Creek, the AFISA, and the same language we'll have in the SFACs coming for you either next or second to next council meeting. So all this says is not the agreement itself as a whole, if it was to be canceled or changed dramatically, yes, it would automatically come before council. The attorney can weigh in on this. This is more for the minor aspects of changing the operational plan, such as when and where we do trainings, our staffing levels. That's really where that section 2 was addressed at, where the chiefs of both departments are really handling the operational side, not really for the agreement side. And I'll let the attorney weigh in on that.
The operations plan is a separate document from the actual agreement itself. So this section speaks to the operations plan, which is that part of the packet that's before the council as well?
Yeah, it starts on page
Okay.
37.
All right. So, the idea is that this is the kind of level of detail in the delivery of public services that does not necessarily require policy input from the elected officials. Some of these details are going to be changed. I'm not by any means an expert in mutual aid operational plans, like who should do what. So we look at this, but we don't, as a legal advisor, we don't try to say, well, you shouldn't operate this way. All we do is look at it before we is there something that doesn't make sense, or breaks the exposure, things like that. Certainly within the council's discretion to decide that if there's any change in this operational plan, that you would be able to approve it. But it isn't, I wouldn't say that's the standard way these mutual aid agreements work. Usually the council approval is of the fact that, yes, we're going to have this relationship with a neighboring volunteer fire department. And you're fairly content to leave the details of, who does what, and there's a call out. Usually we have people that are volunteering and or getting paid to provide that public service.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I'm not sure if this is on the amendment, and Mayor, if it's not, you can redirect me. But right now, we get reports from the fire department of call-outs and all of that. Will this add to our report to show more call-outs?
I would not go on them to say that this would add a large number to the call-outs, no. 12 point runs about a dozen calls a year total. So this is very, very infrequently would we even be doing this. But it's nice to have the plan there so when it happens, there's no delay. Right now, the delay is Low Point gets automatically toned to a fire in their area, and then someone from their department would have to request us to come. And even then, it's more of a gentleman's handshake since there's no agreement in place. So there is quite a delay there. I would see this ramping up our call volume. However, what it does do for us is it benefits us and Lower Point because now, because it's an automatic aid, meaning there's nobody calling saying, hey, can you come help us? Both departments get credit for ISO for that manpower. So anybody who comes from Lower Point into the city is counted just like a sewer firefighter. And so we get credit on the structure fire for having those firefighters as ours. Same thing for Lower Point. It would help their ISO because 3, 4, 5, 6 members, and then all of a sudden they roll up with Bear Creek, Seward, whoever else can come. Now they've got a dozen, 15, 20 people, so it shows that they've got more personnel as well. So that's what that benefit. And as far as the operational plan changes, all that's really saying is, if Chief Van Burskett and I decide, we want to start using this tactical channel, or instead of, hey, I got a new engine, so we're going to start bringing this engine instead of that engine. We just didn't want to have to come before council just to change a wording in the operational plan of we're now going to go to another regulation. Yes, anytime an operational automatic aid or mutual aid agreement is rewritten, it does come before the governing body. So, like the attorney was saying, it's distributed the operational side that we would make changes. And even then, it's gonna be very rare.
Go ahead.
So if it's okay with my second, I'll go ahead and withdraw my motion.
That was a good explanation, thank you.
Thank you.
That was a good explanation. Is there any further discussion? Madam Clerk, if we could call for a vote, please.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2021-074. Demas?
Yes.
Lacroix?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Casagranda?
Yes.
Cease?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Resolution 2021-076. Madam Clerk, if you could read the title into the agenda, into the minutes.
Resolution 2021-076 is authorizing the city manager to repair the city's 2001 G740 Volvo Road Grader, vehicle number 113, with Construction Machinery Industrial in the amount of $62,190.41, plus a 15% contingency for a total amount not to exceed $71,518.98 and appropriating funds.
And I'll turn it over to administration for explanation.
We need a motion.
Oh, motion and a second.
I move for the approval
Rusty.
of Resolution 2021-076.
I'll second it.
That's what I get for missing a meeting. The Vice Mayor just needs to take over. Now, administration, if you could please provide some background.
The Public Works Director is here to explain.
Thank you.
This is a repair to our grader. This grader's 20 years old. It's a 2001 grader. We've been working on replacements and things with our equipment as we go. This one I'm trying to move out another 5 to 7 years before we replace it. We'd anticipated, we had some transmission issues this year with it, so we had to send it up to Construction Machine, which is the Volvo dealer, to take care of that. It's just way bigger than anything we can handle as far as lifting and going. We can't repair a grader transmission. Gets up there and they checked it all out. We had them check for any other things while they were going. We gave them a few ideas of things we had issues with. The total bid came in at $62,000 and the change that you see here. But out of that, there's a $10,000 core charge for the transmission casing and parts. So as long as that old transmission is okay, as far as the core, we get $10,000 back off of that $62,000. So ideally for hopefully it's $52,000 we get into, or if it's $62,000, we extend that life of that grader out 5 to 6, 7 years before we have to replace it. The last one we replaced was a John Deere. It was, I believe, $448,000 to replace. It would be somewhere in that neighborhood. With this one's a little bigger than that one. But that's the gist of what we're doing and why, and I have to answer questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Casagrande?
Yes, I'm getting organized here, sorry.
I might ask a question.
Go ahead.
Fine. I am just wondering why a 15% contingency instead of a 10%, especially knowing that there's a potential to have that core back.
Honestly, that went through the process and finance added that in. We added some contingency. I saw there was a 10% on a different one and a 15 on this. I'm not really sure why, but covering for it, but I'm sure. Last time we did it with Construction Machinery, it was $34,000 on the other grader we had done. That was in 16 or 17, and they were right on with the bid, so I'm hoping we don't even need any contingency, but I think it's just being safe. I think that administration and finances looked at it and thought, well, we don't want to go back to the well again. Let's at least cover it and make sure that if there's something else that pops in that we can cover it. But the 15% versus 10, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I guess my concern is that starting, we use these resolutions time and time and time again, and then once there's 15%, it'll continue to be 15. So I'm going to make a motion to change that, but I was looking to see if there was a specific reason. So I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to change in the title 15% to 10%, and then have that reflected in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th whereas, and then again in section 1. And I'll look for a second.
I'll second.
Yeah, I think with this one, I understand the desire not to want to come back if it goes over, but also with having the possibility of the 10% credit. And I would also like us to, if there's gonna be a 15% as opposed to kind of industry standard of 10, that there's a specific reason for that. Did I miss one? Which one did I miss?
Section 3, the not to exceed amount probably needs to be.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So that's $68,409.45, and it's in the title as well.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, and the title, 68, 4,000,
right.
400.
$68,409.45. It's also, nope, sorry, that's it.
Oh.
Oh, it's in a whereas, there you go. It's in the second to the last whereas as well. I'm sorry, I'm speaking out of turn.
68, 409, 45. So I guess I could have made my motion to just,
Fix it.
15 to 10% throughout the resolution and then adjust the total amount of the not to exceed. So I don't know, is there further discussion on the motion?
Did you get, just for quick, was there a second?
Didn't I get a second?
Okay.
We have a second.
Okay.
Buckline.
Okay, thank you.
And again, you know, in the future, I'm not opposed to a different contingency amount if there's a reason for it. Okay. Can we, I think we're ready to call for a vote.
Voting on that amendment, Buckline?
Yes.
Demas?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Casa Grande?
Yes.
Cease?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
That amendment is approved and your main motion is back on the floor.
Councilmember Cosman?
So I remembered my question, I'm sorry, I found this question last minute, so if I catch anyone off guard, I'm sorry, and hopefully our finance director, acting finance director is available, but how long has the motor pool repair and maintenance account existed? I've never seen that before.
I honestly don't know. I will have to get back to you.
Okay. So I guess I'll just vote for it, and then if I have to bring it back for reconsideration, I will.
And maybe when you get that answer, maybe share it with all of council.
I will.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion on this resolution? I am glad to see that we are fixing equipment instead of just buying new. So thank you for working that out. Madam Clerk, if we could call for a vote, please.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2021-076 as amended, McClure?
Yes.
Casa Grande?
Yes.
Demas?
Yes.
Cease?
Yes.
Buckline?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Okay, let's see if I can do everything right with this one. Resolution 2021-078, Madam Clerk, if you could read that title into the minutes, please.
Resolution 2021-078 is authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Dawson Construction for the design build of the Seward Animal Shelter project in the amount of $1,755,000 plus a 10% contingency for a total amount not to exceed $1,930,500 and appropriating funds.
And I'm looking for a motion in a second.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2021-078.
Second.
Thank you, and I'll turn it over to administration. And this resolution is found on page 70.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Along with me here tonight is our Community Development Director, Jackie, who will answer questions as well, being as the project started before I came. But a couple of questions that I've had was regarding the SOS funds, and that was reported on. And as far as the funds, they stay with SOS. They have not been received into our account. And it was my understanding that the funds were never meant for actually the building itself, but for furnishing the building. I also wanted to report that currently there's $7.1 million in the unassigned fund balance in the general fund, which is equivalent to just over 6 months. So that was a question regarding the funding, the amount that's coming from the general fund. Those are the two financial portions that I have. So any other legal questions?
So I'll just ask, just based off of that before we hear from the community development director. So is the 7.1 following? That's the current.
That's the current amount. So if this is approved, then it would go down to the approximately $6 million.
Okay, so that would probably get us less than 6 months, but definitely more than 3 months.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
What do you want me to tell you? We've been
Maybe
working on this
just,
project since.
Yeah. How far back? Maybe just, we did have a work session, so
We
maybe
did.
just between the work session and now, just to give an overview for the public.
Okay, we originally went out for architectural design, and that project, the price tag, you know, we sort of compared that to the Taj Mahal of buildings, and we knew that staff wouldn't be able to maintain or handle a building of the size that was presented. So we did get approval to go back out to RFP, which is what we did. We included in the RFP a concept design that worked with the current animal shelter, animal control, Shelley, I'm pointing at Shelley, and as well as with the police department. They were really content on making it a simpler layout in a building that would be workable now and in the future. So we presented that, and over the last, well, since 2018, we've really been pushing to try to figure out the best location, the best cost, and the best ability to use the space. And even in our, I mean, we've had weekly meetings, so even in the last meeting, we discussed the opportunities to bring the children in from across the street for classes and how that might look. This project, we've already hands-on totally with Dawson. They have been right on the telephone talking to us. They've explained how the process works and who they'd be working with locally. So they do have local contractors that will be part of the process if it's approved this evening. We've worked with SOS Pets for the last couple years and even currently on the operations of using the money that they're able to have fundraisers and do different projects to incorporate and buy such things as Mr. Luttrell had said, you know, the exam tables and kennels and things that help the operation of the kennel or the animal shelter. Just so everyone knows, we have looked into the design has a pet wash, a self pet wash. We are working with somebody that is possibly going to donate that whole system to us, and that's a great revenue source to help with the future of the animal shelter.
So it looks like the animal shelter will be paying approximately $6,000 a month to the motor pool. I didn't see anything in here how they plan on generating those revenues. Through the dog wash?
To be honest, I'm not positive on how that repayment is handled through finance.
I have a question. And a follow-up from that was, what is the current monthly budget that, or yearly budget that is to the animal shelter that the city pays for?
I would honestly have to look at it and pull it up. I don't know what that answer to that.
I apologize, I didn't ask about that earlier, but I just wanted to know.
Could you restate your question?
So there's a loan in here of $930,500 will be converted to an interfund loan from the motor pool internal service fund to be repaid over 15 years at an interest rate of $5,000 or 5%, sorry. Approximately $65,000 per year. And so 65 divided by 12, sorry, it's 5,400,
Yeah,
5,500. Sorry, not 6,000. And I'm just wondering how the animal shelter is going to generate those revenues plus the additional Utilities that, you know, I assume the heat will be higher because the buildings, from what I could tell, it's a 2,000 square foot building, 50 by 40, my math right?
Well, there's two things. So if they were gonna use that money from proceeds from sales of municipal land, so they would only do, if they didn't have those land sales proceeds, and then they would borrow it from the motor pool fund. But the way the animal shelter would pay that back is because the animal shelter's under the general fund. So we would budget that payback into the motor pool fund. Like we've done, budgeted a payback into the SMIC fund, or budgeted SMIC's payment back. So I mean, it wouldn't be the animal shelter raising money, it would be us budgeting in the general fund to pay back the motor pool fund. They wouldn't be raising that money themselves. It's not an enterprise fund. The animal shelter's part of the general fund, is my understanding.
That's correct.
Go ahead.
So the general fund pays back to the motor pool
Yeah,
as a debt service?
Correct.
So it's appropriating the $930,000 from the proceeds received from the sale of municipal lands. In the event that the land sale proceeds do not reach that amount, then that motor pool loan comes into place, is the match for the funding. Go ahead.
Then why do we charge ourselves 5%?
That's a question. Just to pay back that. Go ahead.
Right, just to pay back, because technically then the other fund is losing the interest, so to try to offset that interest cost. That certainly can be changed. Certainly, yes.
And then do we have any municipal land? Are we looking at, and maybe we've already talked about this and I can't remember, but are we looking at specific municipal land to sell to make the other $930,000?
Well, the first, obviously this is not going to make the 930,000, but the first lot that we're looking at would be the top lot, and then going from there. But we are bringing the lots back to you
Right.
for your approval.
Well, wouldn't the
Before we
first
start.
lot be the clinic?
Oh, I'm sorry.
QNT.
Thank you.
Yes.
Forgot about that.
Which one?
The
Which meeting?
native clinic.
Oh, okay.
Fort
And
William and Park.
Also the existing animal shelter lots will be sold too, that would be.
So those just so everyone is, that is one huge,
But
one
it's part of-
full lot, but yes, when you move into the direction of selling, you know, and relocating public works, then we would just separate those lots out and do the land sale that way
Right.
also. But yes,
So
it's
there's
on
sources.
2 lots.
Their sources.
Councilman Coscarone.
So I apologize, I wasn't at the work session when we were initially presented the animal shelter. I didn't make it, and I said what was the gist of it. The Taj Mahal isn't happening, and we found a design that's about $700,000. And that's what I have stuck in my head. And now we're back up to 2 million. I don't know what the Taj Mahal was, because I wasn't at the, does anyone here know what the Taj Mahal was estimated at?
It was almost a 4,000 square foot building. And it incorporated almost total would have been 2.6 to build it. And that's not including the utilities, as you had spoke about earlier. The $700,000 that kept coming up, I think it came up once during that work session, but it was a number that was given years ago that, it can't cost more than $700,000 to build an animal shelter, but it does. and we can't, you know, I just, for us and the need that is there for the animal shelter, you know, this is a public bid, you have to, you know, the costs involved in it is not just a contractor building an animal shelter, it's a contractor building an animal shelter for a city.
Councilman Coscarone.
So the reason that I pulled this off mostly is, as I told most people, I'm not a very secretive person. The Spinard Builders out the town came back on the market. It's 25,000 square feet of covered space. We're talking for $1.45 million, 2.44 acres. Now we're looking at a 2,000 square foot building at $950 a square foot. And I know this has been a project that has been going for a really long time and it's got a lot of momentum, and to postpone this could be detrimental. And we should just hurry up and vote for it and keep the momentum going. But for me personally, if we're talking 950 square feet, $950 per square feet, and we still want to have a conversation about moving Public Works, I just feel like we need to pull back a little bit. We have a work session scheduled to discuss relocating Public Works. And I personally would like to schedule an executive session to talk about negotiations, or the potential of buying something that is already established instead of building new for the animal shelter. So that's why I have, I can't support this right now.
Councilmember McClure.
This has been pretty much our number one priority for quite a while, and we've been talking about this for a long time. It was agreed by all council to move forward with this. We have done that. The administration has sent out the bids. We got multiple responses. They chose one that's the best one. They've been in contact with those people. It's not going to get any less expensive if we wait. I don't think I've ever experienced absolutely positive public input on anything. Usually there's a few people that are negative. Every piece of the emails that we collectively have gotten have all been in support of this. Since this came up for this resolution, I've talked to no one that's opposed to it, and people are willing to take a chance on this. I think this is something we absolutely have to pass tonight, and I wouldn't be here tonight if it wasn't on the agenda, so this is a very big deal for me.
Councilmember Cease.
What about, I asked our city clerk to look it up, about the animal shelter being out of town, outside the city limits. Can you tell me what you found?
Just that it was a possibility if that was the wishes.
Okay.
I'll say that I definitely support a new animal shelter, and if we are going to be talking about at the next work session moving Public Works, and if we're going to be open to the idea of looking at existing real estate like SBS property, then I believe the animal shelter will happen regardless, and I believe that we have a council that's going to make this happen. And I just don't see the harm in possibly waiting 2 weeks to have this whole conversation if we're talking about $1 million project here, a possible multi-million-dollar project over here, and a large piece of real estate that we might be looking at to purchase. What can we do with it? And I think the animal shelter could possibly be a piece of the puzzle in a potential meeting that we have during this next meeting. So, I mean, I want to pass this because I love the design and we need an animal shelter and the outpouring of support, but it has been so long, and it's a really big decision and it's a lot of money, and I don't see how it would hurt just to hold on until the Public Works work session and discuss the relocation at that time of kind of everything.
Vice Mayor.
I remember the conversations from a long time ago. We talked today with a lot of constituents who had called, and I appreciate their phone calls. I had answered a couple emails, but I think by the time I had done that, it was a little too late. My one concern is that $1 million of the money is coming out of our reserves. which would bring us down to somewhere around 5 months in savings. What I remember a long time ago, and others have told me that it may be different administrations, were that if we were to spend money on things, that we should budget for those things, that we should have a clear plan. If the CIP, and we had agreed on funding CIP items, we should agree to fund those within our budgetary needs of the coming years. I do understand that there's a lot of support. I don't feel that a lot of the public knows that the $1 million is coming out of our reserves, because of the way the wording is in the sections where it says that the $1 million is coming out of the general fund reserves are unassigned balance. So it can be confusing, because I was confused when I first read it. I thought maybe it was the general fund, but it was not. I'm not against or opposed to the project. I just want everyone to know where the money's coming from and what we are spending, and that if that is the wishes of the people, that they would reach out to us and say, I understand that this money is coming out of our possible savings. When we look at a year like last year and what had happened, I pause to think what we would want to spend large amounts of money on. So I do see different points on the dais, and I would caution we are short one member. So I would like to motion to postpone this to the next scheduled council meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, now we're speaking to the motion to postpone.
So in the motion to postpone, in the event that this does pass, I would ask administration to please bring forward the $65,000 a year where we see that being budgeted. Is it an increase in our mill rate? Is it an increase in sales tax? Is it a decrease in expenses? I'd just like to know what we're looking at for that. And I agree with Council Member or Vice Member Baclan that, you know, this is way different than how we've done things in the past. In the past, we would say this is how we're going to do it and let's approve it. But now we're kind of putting it the other way. We're going to say this is how we're going to do it, and we'll talk about how we're going to pay for it later.
You know, I have a comment on the postponement. You know, we've had a lot of folks coming to us talking about the suffering of the animals in that animal shelter, the suffering of the employees, people coming there. So to see that suffering and hear that suffering from our citizens and have something before us that we can act upon is disappointing to me. I'm definitely going to vote for the postponement because I'm hoping that people in the community come forward and say, we want you to use your savings that you've been diligently saving, and this is something very important to us. You know, we've all put it as the top of our agenda. You know, I think 6 months is too much savings. I mean, we're at the top of what our council policy is, the 3 to 6 months. So using $1 million keeps us within that. You know, you know, now I'm hearing about another building. You know, the most expensive building is one you have to retrofit that you did not build for a designed use. So I think we're going to be surprised. There's no, you know, of another building, there's been no examination, there's been no inspections, there's been no ground testing. So, you know, I'm just shocked to be here today, honestly, but I will be voting for the postponement, and I hope the public comes out and really talks to council members about what their wishes are. Did you want to speak to the postponement?
It's peripherally to the postponement, the fact that we're discussing, the reason for postponement is to discuss after the work session potentially moving the location of the proposed animal shelter to outside the city limits in a building that's going to be retrofitted. Is that what I'm hearing? Yeah.
Is that what the...
And I'm just appalled.
I would not say that that is the reason why I proposed that, but I would just, we have, there's a lot of support for it. I just want to know that for 100% that we are going to take that money out of our reserves, that $6,000 is gonna be, has to be budgeted later, either through animal control or through the police department, or however that money is being paid back, that is the plan, and that we are, almost like this should have, I felt like this should be a public hearing on that much money, but it's a, I understand, we're talking about something that has been in the works for a long time. I just don't think that the funding is the right, is understood where that funding is coming from. Where the, if it was from the general fund, that's a different story. That is money that we have. That is, you know, cash on hand, that is not meant for something else, for an emergency, for some money we can spend. But from the reserves, I think requires the public to know that, where that money is coming from.
Yeah, and again, the only reason I'll vote for a postponement is because I think that this would fail, and I think that that would be a travesty at this point. Councilmember Cease?
I'm all for a animal shelter. I'm very much in love with having dogs and cats around. And I know it's hard over at the place it is right now. But I agree with Vice Mayor here, Tony, is to where is the money really coming from and how are we going to replenish it?
Talk is cheap, and if we think something's important, then we need to spend the money to do something. But Vice Mayor?
I would like to ask the city manager when we bring this back, if we could have, if we could know how much before and what we were contributing to the general fund reserve balance from before last year, and this last year we had not contributed anything. Sales tax was short again, so what did we contribute before, and maybe the last 3 years, or each year that was broken down what we contributed. So estimated how long it would take to repay that back or replenish that back into the general fund reserves.
Councilmember Costa?
If we're asking administration to bring more financial information, if we could also get a breakdown of what we have dipped out of the motor pool fund over the last year, I think maybe 2 years. I think it's the last year we've been using that for a couple different things. Just an overall general health state of the motor pool.
And
Just was holding up your hand.
I'm just holding up my hand because it hurts, but I will speak, I guess. Well, I guess I will be forced to vote for postponement too, if that will allow us to actually pass it in 2 weeks. That's my only hope now, so hopefully I'll be recovered by then.
And with the, just a follow-up from Councilmember Casagrande's question, if we do not have, just hypothetically, if there is no municipal land sales this year, what does that bring our motor pool balance to, minus the 900,000?
908.
Yeah. And maybe what is, projected to be budgeted for next year, or our last budget, what was budgeted for the motor pool that last time? We only would be doing a 1-year budget, so.
So I have further comments, but since it's just on the postponement, we'll call.
I have questions on the postponement. I think they're on the postponement. So I heard someone say the land sale from the tribe that we're selling to is Chugach. Katuchak? No, Chugach? Is part of what will fund this, but did we approve that?
No, I didn't say that.
Oh.
That it was, we haven't approved it, but we are in negotiations, so that's a possibility.
Okay.
It could be sold before the end of the year. Because how this reads right now is appropriate appropriate 930 from the proceeds received from the sale of municipal lands. In the event land sale proceeds do not reach that before the end of the year. So there are a couple options potentially for land sales before the end of the year. We have one right now in negotiation, and it's that one. And that was voted on by council.
But it's not done, it's just a
It's
negotiation.
coming back to us for final sale.
Okay.
Okay. Voting on the postponement.
Voting on the motion to postpone to July 26th. Cease,
Yes.
Buckbon,
Yes.
Casagranda,
Yes.
Leclerc,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That motion is approved.
Next on the agenda is just informational items and reports. There's three public notices. There's a work session on the 26th at 5 p.m. to discuss the renegotiation of the wholesale power contract. One on the 26th at 5:30 to review and discuss relocation options for the public works facility. And then a public notice for the work session on August 9th at 5:30 for the presentation of the city's draft of the 2020 financial report by Altman Rogers. Are there any comments on those informational items and reports? No, thank you. Next on the agenda is citizen comments. There's no sign-in for comment period, and time is limited to 5 minutes. If there's anyone that would like to speak, go ahead.
My name is Christina Smith, and I live outside of city limits. And I was going to come to the July 26th work session regarding the Public Works building and propose land sites. When I heard about the possibility of proposing the SBS building and property, I took a look at the information that Doug, the Public Works Director, had supplied in the CIP work session that happened a couple of weeks ago, and also at the borough information of the plat and the real estate listing of the SBS building and lot, and the wants and needs of the public works. I believe would be a very tight fit for that plot as it is right now. To include an animal shelter in that would almost be non-existent. I agree with the comments being made, trying to create a building for something that was not created for into something else is going to be costly. It's a $1.4 million building and lot, and you are probably easily looking at another $1 million to create an animal shelter somewhere on that. Even taking the design that we have now to that second lot that is part of that property would have to go out for redesign. You know, the design that is now is set up for Sea Lion Drive. It is not set up for I believe it's Herman Lear Road, or that side street, sorry, I don't know what it is. But in the information that was provided in the CIP work session when discussing the public works, the utility yard that is just down the road from the SBS building is included in a breakdown of assessment of varying properties, and if they suit the public works needs. I know that was done several years ago, but that is something to look at within the next 2 weeks. I believe it's very comparable. We heard at Planning and Zoning and also at City Council that the animal shelter will not be approved or supported to move from one residential area to another residential area. SBS is in a residential area. There is a house right next door on both lots, behind the second lot and to the side across of Herman Lear. So it would be moving from a residential to another residential. It is also outside of city limits, and as of right now, the Seward Animal Shelter does not take in out of city limit animals. So how do you have an animal shelter outside of city limits but not receive or accept outside city limit animals? That would be very confusing for our community members as well as staff. I believe it would be hard on staff to say, no, sorry, we can't accept your animal, and then what what's that animal going to do? Or that person that found the animal going to do with the animal? So there's a lot of questions, and I will bring the notes that I have with me to the 26th work session specifically for the Public Works. But in this last minute, I just want to stress, just because the animal shelter is with the Public Works building right now does not mean that it has to stay. I believe these are two separate entities and should be looked at such. Moving forward, we've been talking about the animal shelter over the last several years, specifically the last 3, with the forward momentum that we have. Let's move this from our to-do pile to our done pile. And let's then start focusing on moving the Public Works building so we can open up those lots for sale. It is prime realty. Let's move it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Linda had her hand up, thank you.
We look at outside city limits. The paperwork for Lowell Point Fire Department, having been the person that I was involved, it's a long story and there's a lot of history behind that Lowell Point Fire Department. And to be here tonight hearing that the paperwork is in place for a basic, I mean, they called it something different, but my wording was mutual aid. It's a milestone. And so I wanted to also give a shout out to the Lowell Point people that are doing it, particularly Carl Van Buskirk, who's the fire chief out there. You know, he's put a lot of work in over the years and he's made it happen. And it's a good thing for everybody. It's a really good thing for Seward. And you guys doing the electric thing, I mean, it's just, it really feels good to come to these meetings and see the progress that's getting made. Sometimes it takes a long time. And sometimes we have these, you know, roadblocks, like tonight, a little disagreement about what's gonna happen with the animal shelter. But the thing that's really different now is that it really feels like you guys will figure it out. You'll figure it out and you'll get it done. And that's worth acknowledging. So just want to say thank you to you guys for the work you're doing. And Seward's really in good hands.
Go ahead, Mark.
Well, it seems like there's 2 issues. One is how to pay for it, where the money comes from, and then the other is where to put it. And I think Councilmember Klon's concern about the public knowing exactly where the money is coming is a good idea. Putting the animal shelter out of SBS is not a good idea, as has been described. I think we can get all our community members who pay attention to this to send, yet again, more emails to you saying, I support the animal shelter and I support it coming from the reserve. But I would say 2 things. People are tired of sending emails to the council. Been doing it for decades. And then second, maybe I'm way off, but I don't think everybody in town really understands the machinations of city council. And if I try to describe the difference between a general fund and a general fund reserve versus the motor pool and how that something fund is going to, interloan fund is going to pay each other back, you know. And so I'll call my people. But I think what they will end up saying is, I really want an animal shelter. And I like the Dawson proposal.
Thank you. Bruce?
Well, I'm tempted to say I don't have a dog in this. I do, and you know, it's hard to speak against, you know, an animal shelter. We're all, you know, stressed by the ads we see on TV with poor neglected animals, and in Seward we don't have that. What we have is a poor facility, and it's been a poor facility for a long time. It's an embarrassing facility. what's happened over the last several years is a lot of manpower, a lot of hours have gone into this, trying to resolve what kind of a building, where it's gonna be put. I'm disappointed that we come to tonight to realize that we don't understand how we're gonna pay for it. And quite frankly, the difference between a 5-month reserve, 6-month reserve, or 3 months, if in fact it's 3 to 6 months, and you're at the high end, taking some money that you already got and paying for it, should be simple. Should be simple. That you're taking a little extra time, that's not a problem. What is it, 2 weeks? But at the 26th, at the meeting on the 26th, I don't know if you can pass a resolution and agree to come up with the money. But in the meantime, you've got a contractor who has been asked to put a bid together at their own cost, based on specifications that were given to them. And then they're gonna work their schedule, the manpower, their jobs, based on what they think they're gonna, they already know that they are the successful bidder. Now, the city of Seward says, oh, hold on, this may not happen. The contractor's enthusiasm is gonna go. And that's a cost issue too. So, you get past this, and I hope you do find a way to fund it. And frankly, SBS is gonna be better property in private hands, not the city's hands. And it may be back on the market, but that's not the last person that's looking for it, the one that didn't get it. So I would say that. Now, what I really came to talk about is the airport again. And Mayor Terry talked just briefly about asking PACAB for a special meeting. Everybody's busy. Summertime, PACAB people are out on tour boats, and it'll be difficult, but not impossible. But I do think it's important that the city respond to the state. And if in fact council has said, we fought this battle, we're not gonna win. We have a few issues that we have to straighten out right away, that'd be planning and zoning. But the delay is not the proper tactic. And I have had a response from someone who thinks that that's a successful tactic, delay. It's not gonna work. The delay is not gonna be in the city's best interest. If the deal is the runway that DOT wants to put in, I think we're stuck with it, at least for now. And then down the road, if we can come up with some federal money to do something else, you know, I spent a lot of time on this, a lot of heartache, and Linda was on this council, or on our ad hoc committee. The mayor and I went, and others went up to talk to FAA. They've got their minds set, and their procedures are set. So winning that change probably isn't gonna happen. Winning individual issues, what right-of-ways, you know, Herman Lear, Steve Lear has property in there. I haven't talked to him whether he's even in favor of this change or not. You know, there's legwork that needs to be done, but you can't delay it. You gotta come up with something in a hurry. Because they've got, I think, 90 days, the calendar's running, and the suggestion, I guess, to me, I said I don't want to hear a threat, and it was converted to a suggestion, is that the state will move forward without the city's action at all. And that's a bad precedent. And thanks, guys. You did a great, you have a very exciting back and forth. We're out of here before 9 o'clock, and you know, it's nice to see.
Well, it's not over yet.
Oh, it's not
I did see another hand for. Go ahead.
Hi, Becky Dunn, Inside the City. I wanted to echo what Bruce Joffa said about the airport. I unfortunately firsthand know how unforgiving the air can be, and the DOT, I don't trust them. I mean, they had the brilliant idea of putting the road in 6 inches lower just in front of my store, and look how well that worked out. We really do need 2 runways. The wind direction speed is it depends on which runway you land at. It's a safety thing. And if the air is icy, the helicopter can't fly. And look at how messy the road was this winter. We really need to be able to get in and out for emergencies. And I just think that the city needs to speak, and the city, the entire town seems to be united on wanting a shelter now, and not wanting to do the airport, the DOT's plan on the airport. Actually, it's like two subjects that everybody seems to be really united on. And also echo what all was said about the shelter. We really need to just move forward with it regardless of how the money's coming, because I'm sitting there looking at my shipping bills, sitting there looking at the companies, my vendors that have a list of what they have on inventory of an item. Pig's ears, just recently, I had called 4 different vendors before I could find one that had one. Found them at Pig's Ears for Sale, found them in Seattle and had to pay to ship them up here. And they were more than I had just sold them for. We need to act on this now, because next week it might be more, or the next bid might be higher than this one. When I started selling lumber, it was $5 a 2x4. Look at what it is now, it's almost 10. So we need to act now. The delays have already cost us enough, and to stick up for the airport. It's really important not to lose that. I was talking to Mike Rule from the DOT when the Life Flight tried to land and it couldn't. It had to circle around and head back to Anchorage. So it can get serious really fast, and I'm really concerned with the plan of letting the river run its course closer to the airport, get rid of that one runway. Never mind, that just, that sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. So I do think the council needs to take action and stick up for our airport. It used to be a lot more of an important part of town than it is now. We do have companies that are interested in coming in to do commercial flights, and just for the life saving, or it's just a safety thing too. And thank you for your time, and thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you. There was another public comment. Did you want to make public comment, ma'am? Yeah.
I'm Jane Bellaveric, and I live within Seward City limits. I just want to point out that in the resolution for the new animal shelter, it said how much it cost. In the agenda packet for the new resolution, it said how much it costs. Seward citizens are not ignorant. They know a shelter is not going to be cheap, but yet you got an overwhelming response of positivity towards a new animal shelter. So, yeah, we know it's going to cost, and so let's just proceed forward. I respect that we want to delay it for 2 weeks and reassess some of the nuances, but Seward citizens support the new animal shelter and support that it's going to cost. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Hearing and seeing none, next on the agenda is council and administration comments in response to citizen comments. I'll start off with the administration if you have any comments for this evening.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've taken down the questions that were asked between the meetings. If you have more questions, please let me know, and I will research those and get back to you on them.
Great, thank you so much. Normally I start to the right, but let's start left, right, left, right. So Councilmember DeMoss, did you have any comments?
Just a couple. I want to say, Sue, I hope you feel better soon, and I'm glad that you're kind of okay. So quick healing to you. Secondly, to SOS, thank you for everything that you've done for the animal shelter, for the animals over the years. My husband and I and our business has been donating and supporting to the animal shelter and to SOS for over 10 years. And so we personally support a new shelter along with everybody else in the community. As my job as a council person, I take it seriously to be fiscally responsible for our community and our constituents. And if I think that there is something that needs to be explored a little bit further, before spending millions of dollars on something. And even if it happens last minute and everybody's mad because something doesn't get passed that they wanted to get passed, I'm gonna make that decision, and so that's where I stood tonight. I look forward to a new animal shelter as well, and I think it will be happening soon. So I appreciate everybody reaching out regarding that, and I appreciate the diversity on council and everybody's support on council for us to have our own opinions and to have healthy conversations regarding that. And thank you, Linda, for hitting the nail on the head with that, because I do believe that we'll come to a really positive conclusion. So that's all. Good night.
Thank you, good comments. Councilmember Cascardi?
I would just like to say that this isn't always an easy job. I got excited of the potential of a $58 per square foot opportunity versus a $950 per square foot opportunity. And I'm sorry if that disappointed people or made people frustrated, but it's definitely something that I feel we need to explore. When we were talking about this, the $58 per square foot was not an option, and it just became an option recently. And I appreciate everybody that came to speak. I remember sitting here when I very first got on council 10 years ago and we built the library. And it was the same momentum. There was a library community that had been working for years and everything was ready to go. And everyone said, well, how are we going to pay for it? And they said, it doesn't matter, just open it, just do it. And we have this library that's always closed, that's always understaffed, that we can't budget for, and we can't utilize fully because it's never available. That's it. Thank you.
Councilmember Cease?
I also wish Sue the best and that she gets rid of that cast, but it's gonna be more than 2 weeks, I have to tell you. And I am all for it, and, like I said, animal shelter, I think we do need one. And I can understand that the $58 square foot is a lot different than the 900 and some. And, but it may not be the right thing to do, but 2 weeks, I think it's gonna be a good time for all of us to figure out where it's gonna be paid by and make sure that hopefully that Dawson is going to keep the price the same. And with Bruce Java talking about the airport, I do feel that we need the airport. I supported it when it came before. And I really hope that we can talk DOT into doing the right thing for our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember McClure?
Well, first of all, I'm really excited about the mutual aid agreement with Lowell Point. That's been something in the works. I would request that the clerk contact our borough assembly representative and have him here or give some kind of report at the next meeting, because it's been a long time. There are several issues I wanted to ask him about publicly that have come up, and it's annoying. I think everyone knows how I feel about the animal shelter. I just won't mention that right now. But what I really want to refer to now is sidewalks, because as people have been wishing me well, I had an encounter with one of our irregular sidewalks last Wednesday, and it resulted in a compound fracture, a couple other broken bones, a chipped tooth, broken glasses, and my face looked worse a few days ago. I'm very well insured because of my retirement and my age, and that's a good thing. I'm recovering from surgery. The cast comes on in a week. This isn't the cast, this is the post-surgical thing. I just want to point out that I was the one that wanted to use some of the cruise ship money for sidewalk repairs. And that was my thought all the way up to Anchorage and in their ER and all that time. And another thing came up during that too is I was painfully aware of the fact that unless you're near death, you don't get medevaced out. And we have no ground transport to Anchorage. So they were arranging to have an ambulance from Anchorage come to get me. I was told I needed immediate as possible surgery because of the risk of, because of the type of break and all that. But they would have to bring an ambulance from Anchorage, and everyone sort of knows this, but you don't really know this until you're lying there in the are, and a friend drove me up, and everything worked out just fine. And I just took an Advil this morning, so I'm really lucid. I may not look it, but there's some pain. But we need to do something about our sidewalks. This was, I am very cautious, and it can happen, and it's happened to a lot of people. And so, anyway, there's that. And I really want to also say I appreciate the outpouring of support for the animal shelter. I should at least mention that from everybody. And we'll reconvene on this in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
I hope that you have a quick and safe recovery. I want to be clear, I'm not against an animal shelter. I am for clear and fiscal responsibility on where that money is going to come from, and the people understand that. The reason why I got involved with council was because of the changes of the mobile vending permits. Sometimes it takes a little bit of a catalyst to get you involved in something. And as we talk about different things, I wish you lived in city limits, Christiana. I would love to see you on council or run for council someday. Because you're so involved, and I appreciate that you come and every week and speak to the things that you're passionate about. And that's what's important. I want to say thank you to administration. Jeanette has been very responsive to all of the questions that we have, even if they're last minute. I'm so sorry. And to all administration, because we know that we can reach out and count on them. And that is one of the things I do appreciate about this council. And the election is coming up, so as a reminder, that comes up real quick to submit your interest into council. So we look forward to that, and I know we can get passionate about things and things that we care for. I know that we all we all do truly and genuinely care about each other and our community. So just know that this is not a no. This is a let's do it right, let's make the right decisions, and let's take the time that we can. A past city clerk had told me one of the things that we don't do a lot is postpone, because we make very hard decisions and we feel like we have to make them, we have to do that, we have to do something immediately. And then when we go back and we sing the shoulda, coulda, wouldas after, why didn't we spend money on sidewalks? Why didn't we do something else? Because we didn't take the time to really think about something and really think about what was going to happen and what would be all the repercussions to every decision that we make. If we can afford a little bit of time, if we can think it through all the way, then we can make the right decisions and move forward responsibly. So thank you for coming and all of the support and all the emails that came in this last week. I may not have time to respond to them all in the summer, but I do appreciate reading them and seeing them, so thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank you, Vice Mayor, for taking care of the work sessions and the meetings while I was on vacation. It was nice to be gone and not have anything to worry about. I want to say great job to the Chamber over the 4th of July. I was not here for the 4th, but I was here for the race, and that was another phenomenal race, and I'm glad that we're back on track with next year having that race on the 4th of July. I want to say congratulations to Andy and his wife Erin Baker. He's a contractor that's done some energy work with us, and at the Sea Life Center they just had a new baby Avery. Speaking to the Heat Loops project, it doesn't look like under the current climate that pencils out, but I'm very glad that administration took the step and asked for an extension, knowing that all those federal funds are coming down with energy projects. So I think if we can hold that off, again, making any final decisions on that and see what other monies are out there, that's going to be phenomenal. I want to thank all our businesses and all the workers. We see you and we thank you. And I just hope that Seward citizens and even all of Alaskans, if they have to wait a little longer or that they can be patient, they can overtip their servers. Just be kind to those workers, because they really are doing a public service. And all those business owners are really doing the best they can. And we definitely appreciate them, and we want them to be here for a long time, so let's not burn them out. I want to say go Lydia. Like, what an I think all of us can just have residual pride, even if we never been spoken to her life or helped her, but just what an outstanding achievement for Lydia. And really, just this town should be so proud of that swim program, and just use this as a catalyst to just encourage our youth that much further. June 25th, there's a 2:50 a.m. and then 5:50 p. Oh, no, June 25th, there's a 2:50. No, I think there's something coming up in June.
Oh, you're right.
There's something coming up in June.
We're in July.
Oh, I'm sorry, right, July, sorry.
You should never go on.
I should never go on vacation again. July 25th.
I was like next June.
Sorry, July 25th, 2:50 a.m. and 5:50 p.m. Are her first events, so that's exciting coming up. There's a Facebook post about it, so don't quote me. Obviously, I'm a little bit rusty, but the notes I have are July 25th, 2:50 a.m. and 5:50 p.m. And I think there's some movement to try to get a community viewing together. So watch for those details. If you're able to come out for that so that we can do a better showing than Anchorage. So if you follow Facebook or have a friend that follows Facebook, get those details. And let's get a group out there, even at the 2:50 a.m. Let's show KTUU and the world that we're here supporting our swimmer. I think that's all. I do want to say that I definitely appreciate asking questions, taking time, making sure that the decision that's being made is in the best benefit of all of the citizens. But I also want to caution that there's also a possibility that we are afraid to take the next step on things. So I want to make sure that we're a council that ultimately move forward and address what citizens want in a timely manner, especially if there's support for that and we're responsive to our citizens, and spending money on things that really matter to this community instead of just hanging on to things. And I want to make that comment based on, I'd like to see a community center someday, and that is going to cost us more money in operations, and we might have to find other funding sources. So if we say we can never expand our budget, we can never spend any money, I think our taxpayers want to see us spending money on things that mean something to them and make this community great. So that's the comments that I have. And with that, I will adjourn at 9:03.
You're too, John.